Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic, I've already forgotten. Let's see, what is today's topic? Um, yes, today's topic is reflection. And so, what does that mean? When we is it possible that the world as we experience it is a reflection of ourselves? And if that's the case, how can we shift the world by shifting our perception? So I think it'll be an interesting conversation. As always, you always have such wonderful things to contribute to the conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute to settle in and get present. Good morning, Andrea. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Let's just take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen filling your lungs and flooding your bloodstream, nourishing every cell and every organ. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, negativity, toxicity. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your molecules, all your electrons, and lighting your cells up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension or stress, fatigue, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms and allow yourselves to sink into that sensation and really present yourself to how remarkable it is to be able to have these sensual, physical experiences. And bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome. It's great to be with you on this Earth Day. So, we're going to talk about reflection today. And reflection is where we get to see ourselves, but it's also where we get to look within ourselves. And I think that this notion that possibly the world as we experience it is a reflection of ourselves, of our mindset, of um, our emotional state. And when I'm good morning, and happy Earth Day, Rosalind. Welcome. I probably should have made today about Earth Day, but we can because it is about reflection. And maybe what we can be looking at is how we can be celebrating our our planet and our connection with the planet. But with this idea of reflection, when we're feeling isolated and alone, we see a pretty bleak world. When we're feeling up, everything is beautiful. And I'm wondering how we can shift that experience, um, our experience of the world to actually shift the world. Because what do we discern the boundary or the distinction between our perception and the truth of the world with a capital T? It does that even exist? Or is this reality a projection of ourselves and a reflection? So I think there's probably some combination of all of it that I'm not quite privy to, that is the magic formula for what's real and what's not real. But I think we get to look at how our perception shapes our experience, and then they can feed each other um, exponentially. So I have noticed that when we experience a setback. Good morning, Robert. And by the way, guys, I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us yesterday for the debut of the Sustainability Hour. It was so wonderful to have you all there. It really lifted my spirits. I hope you enjoyed it. And I think we can do some good stuff there together, sharing resources. And I'm going to put up a Slack channel, and we'll figure out how to make that work. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to collectively create some actions and make a difference in that way too. Anyway, I just so deeply appreciate that you joined me yesterday, and Maggie. That was awesome. So we're talking about reflection, and actually, this goes into this whole idea of Earth Day and sustainability, because I think that so many people are overwhelmed by the prospect of turning things around in the world, because it seems like systems and the problems that we face are so deeply entrenched that I believe that so many people just become hopeless about it. And so this is where we get to look at how the world is our reflection, and we are its reflection, but we can rise above that to be, to create ourselves anew. So I talked about this yesterday, about how I couldn't live with the hopelessness and despair of seeing what we've done on the planet and not believe that we could turn it around. I couldn't live with that. And so I started looking for solutions, and now I really am much more solution focused and much more hopeful. I recognize that this is a perilous time, but I do have this hope that we can make a difference and turn things around and salvage our ability to survive and thrive on the planet. Somebody said yesterday, the planet's going to be fine. We may not survive on it, but the planet's going to be fine in the long run. And so in this conversation, I believe that as we hold the possibility, the true possibility, that we can create a world that works for humanity and for the animals on the planet and for nature, then we create solutions, we generate solutions, and it's an exponential process of reflection. Good morning, Gia. Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here. And Dennis, welcome, welcome. So good to have you here. Maggie's off eating one of my plants. Maggie, Maggie. She's just bouncing up and down, acknowledging her name, but not coming over. Anyway, so this idea of reflection, and yes, happy Earth Day, Gia, to everybody here. And Dennis, I don't know if you guys are not hearing me say your names, but welcome, welcome, Gia and Dennis. And good morning. It's great to be here with you, and happy Earth Day to everybody. Today is a celebration of our Earth, and really every day should be Earth Day, right? Because this is the source of our sustenance and our lives, right? And we it's really interesting to recognize that as human beings, we have the capacity to view our situation and to recognize that we live on and with this planet, and we live with nature. We have the ability to recognize that, rather than living in this crazy separated vacuum, right? Where we imagine that we need to conquer nature, or we separate ourselves from even any recognition of the natural world. Hopefully this is one of the reflections as we reflect inward, well, this is one of the reflections that can transform the way we be in the world, on this planet. That we're collaborative uh, partners with the earth, and that we are actually part of nature rather than superior to nature. We get to be, in thinking about Earth Day and our connection with nature, and our dominion, our belief in our dominion over nature. We get to have this conversation. It's a perfect conversation for Earth Day, I think, because clearly we have not had the skills, the wisdom, the foresight to uh, be the best stewards of the gifts that we're graced with on this planet. And hopefully, through reflection, we can recognize Maggie. No, sorry, she's Maggie. Let me grab her. Hold on. Come on, come on, come on. No, you don't get to eat the plant. So thank you for your patience with that. So I have this amazing plant. It is a night blooming cereus. I named it Audrey because it reminds me of this plant that just grows like crazy from the Little Shop of Horrors, and it has the most magnificent flowers, but it only has it each flower only flowers overnight, and it looks like something alien and spectacularly beautiful. But anyway, Maggie has taken it upon herself to decimate that plant, and there's still remnants enough to be able to flower. So I'm trying to preserve it, but she's pretty intent on eating it, and especially when I'm online, because she knows that I typically won't go to get her. She just went back over to the plant. Maggie, come here, baby. It's not happening. Come on, Mag. Come on. Oh, she came. She's coming back. Good girl, Maggie. Good girl. So this is recognizing we don't have dominion over nature. We get to collaborate, right? So Maggie, come on, baby. Anyway, so these reflections of within ourselves and into the world, what how can we elevate the world through what we choose to reflect? I've seen people, including myself, go through times when there's a dip, a depression. I need to grab her. I'm sorry. Where there's a dip or an incident in life that derails us. This is the price of having a bird be the co-host, right? I could put her in her cage, but then she wouldn't be able to join us, and you wouldn't get to see her. So anyway, when people experience situations that knock their feet out from under them, what I see happening often is that it's like a domino effect, where everything comes tumbling down, and then the world looks like a terrible place to be. And what we tend to see is all the negativity, and all the problems, and all the pain, and it amplifies and sort of um, expands itself. Where we put our attention grows. Good morning, Abdullah Fattah. Welcome, welcome. So good to have you here with us. So what happens is that what we focus on multiplies and amplifies, and therefore when we're in the throes of despair, there we can see reflections in the world to feed it, and and I've seen that lately, and I know that there are things in the world to despair about, and there are things in the world to celebrate. And the thing is that when we're focused on the despair, it's tremendously destructive to us physiologically. It's destructive. It's destructive to us energetically. And what happens is that that energy moves into the field also. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here with us. Welcome to Earth Day. We're talking about reflections of ourselves into the world and the world to us, and our own reflections within ourselves. And on this Earth Day, we if we can focus on solutions, if we can look to the possibility and the possible in the world, the potential and possibility. If we can look for solutions rather than get lost in the problems, we can make a huge impact in the world. And this is on every level, not just in terms of environmentalism, but in terms of our emotions, in terms of our interactions with others. And so we do ultimately get to choose our focus. Now, when we feel leveled by circumstance and what's happening in our lives, or certain events that just feel devastating, if we can find the grace to have a moment to step back and see a bigger picture. And I say grace because oftentimes those experiences can be all consuming. Then we can allow ourselves the the contrast to really recognize that we have a choice, that it's not that one is more real than the other. It's not that those thoughts and those feelings are true or the truth, because the truth, as we're able to perceive it as human beings, is very much subjective, right? The truth that I experience is colored by my experience, is colored by my beliefs, is colored by my physical perception, just as that's the case for each one of us, that none of us perceives the truth. Um, and with a capital T, we may have our own truth, and that may or may not be aligned with this bigger capital T truth that we have very limited access to. You know, we have clues as to what the truth with a capital T might be, but I don't believe that we really have access to that that greater reality, like the reality with a capital R. We all have a subjective reality. As much as we want to say it's objective, you know, based on facts here, there, or the other place. It's really interesting. I remember, I think it was Kellyanne Conway, not one of my favorite figureheads, but I think she was the first one to coin the phrase alternative facts. And, you know, in some respects, there there are alternative facts, as much as I hate to admit that, that there are studies, for instance, that have complete that can have diametrically opposed results, so according to one study the fact is A, and according to another study the fact is B. And so what's true, what's real, what's real and what's not real? So um, as we recognize the subjective nature of our being, of our reality, then it is beholden to us to hold the highest frequency possible, I think, as and that that emanates out. And when you're in a good mood, isn't the world beautiful? And isn't there a greater likelihood of amazing things happening? When you're feeling miserable and down, isn't there a greater likelihood of not so wonderful things happening? Haven't you found that, it's like one thing goes wrong and you're like, oh my gosh, now what's going to happen next? And then something else happens, and there's a tendency to go into a downward spiral. And when we're feeling good, that can go into an upward spiral as well, right? Where we amplify our experience. So what's your experience with this reflecting the world and the world reflecting you, and being able to take action, or even if it's an emotional action, or even if it's an awareness that enables you to realize, hey, wait, this isn't, it's not like this is real. It's that this is what I'm experiencing and reflecting in this particular moment, and I have the ability to shift it. So have you had those moments where you're going down a path and you're recognizing, oh my gosh, this is, all of a sudden you have a moment to say, wow, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to feel this way? Do I really want to perpetuate this? And what do I want? What do I prefer? These moments, I call them moments of grace, because it's so easy to be caught in the momentum of the moment, in the momentum of these really profound feelings. And we believe that they're real. When it's real, it feels like it's real. I mean, when we experience it, it feels like it's real, right? It feels like, this is how it is, and it's never going to end, and it's always going to be like this. And then maybe we have a moment just of grace to be able to see this whole dynamic, to say, wait a minute, I don't have to make this real. Have you experienced that? Have you experienced that moment of grace to be able to say, okay, enough. I'm done with this perspective. It's like, wow, wait, let me shift. I wonder what it is besides that conscious moment of grace that allows us to be miserable one day and happy the next. So Elaine says, for me, moving beyond good and bad opened me up to a broader perspective and a clear reflection within and without, beyond belief. That's beautiful, Elaine. And so you have encapsulated really what I'm talking about. Is part of our experience is based in our judgments of what's happening. So um, you know maybe maybe I'm not thinking of an example at this moment, but when a situation that we might judge as bad or as tragic in some way or another may end up being, it's an experience. When we view it as being tragic, then that throws us into greater story, right? The interpretation of judging this thing then throws us into a further elaboration on that story. And it is story, it is, we're meaning making machines. So we make up these meanings to assign to things. And oftentimes it can be very wonderful if we make up meanings that are supportive for ourselves, but we often make up meanings that are really devastating and allow ourselves to go deeper and deeper into a downward spiral. And it gains its own momentum and is often very, very challenging to find our way out of. Lisa says, I've always had an ideal that doesn't exist. Oh boy, that's a recipe for extreme disappointment, right? I've always had an ideal that doesn't exist. It causes me to set myself up for disappointment. Exactly. Recently, I noticed that my perception has changed and I can catch myself. Awesome, Lisa. That's a massive, powerful breakthrough to recognize. So, this idea of perfectionism is just a really destructive idea. And having these ideals that we believe, this is how it should be. When we project our ideas of how life should be on life itself, boy oh boy, that's a recipe for super depression, disappointment, uh anxiety, and all kinds of things. Like, I'm this old, this is where I should be in life and I'm not. Or by now I should have whatever. This is the shoulds we know we should not should on ourselves, right? So Elaine says, yes, I have experienced that many times. As I am willing to shift the way I think or believe, I see myself and the world different. As I see myself and the world different it as it's the same. I'm not sure how to interpret that last part of what you were saying, Elaine, but the world is the world, right? We just have our perceptions of it. And when we have expectations about how things should be, first of all, who says? Who says that that's how it should be? Maybe our parents said that. Maybe television said that. Maybe marketing said that. When we say it should be, it's a good question to ask yourself, who says? Who says it should be that way? It is how it is. How do we get to say how it should be, right? Like, I should this, that, or the other. I should be there by now. I should have made more of myself. Wow, what a statement. I should have made more of myself. So there are a couple things in that statement we get to reflect upon and really disentangle. So I should, first of all, who says, made more of myself, more according to what? What is this more? What is the standard? What is the foundation of that standard? So many of the judgments that we just take for granted, and the ideas and the perspectives that we just take for granted are false, are just fallacious to begin with. So this actually reminds me of an awesome conversation I had yesterday with a marvelous woman who was instrumental in getting fracking stopped in New York, where they got the moratorium on fracking. And she's just brilliant. She's an attorney, And her name is Helen, and I don't remember her last name. I can sort of see it, but she's amazing. What was happening is that everybody in New York that was concerned about fracking was working to contain it, to legislate it, and to limit it. And she said, well, wait a second, everybody was asking, how can we limit fracking, how can we contain it, how can we control it? And she asked an entirely different question, and the question was, how do we stop it? How do we stop it? And and all the this is so fascinating, and it was infuriating to me as well to hear that the all the green organizations were were afraid to step up against fracking because they were trying to implement, I believe it was implement some policies against uh, the coal mining. And so they were afraid to address this fracking issue. And she said bollocks to all of that, and just went ahead with finding a way to stop fracking, not by going at fracking itself, but on a local level by working through the industrial uh, dangers to a community, just that were blanket any kind of industrial development that would threaten a community. And fracking fell under that umbrella. And as a result, on local levels, they were able to get a moratorium on fracking in local communities, which ultimately ended up going to a statewide ban, a statewide moratorium on fracking, because it was so devastating to the communities. And how brilliant is that? So, this is, when we talk about reflection, one of the things, and I know we've said this a whole bunch of times, the quality of our experience is based on the questions that we ask. The quality of our results, even, is based on the questions that we ask ourselves. Not like, why can't I, but how can I? Instead of why can't I, how can I? Or, what is possible, not looking at the negative. So as we recognize, what she did is what I call seeing that the emperor had no clothes. She was looking at this whole vantage point from I mean, she was looking at this whole issue from a new and clear vantage point, instead of getting caught up in the existing conversation, to be actually seeing what that conversation was, to be able to move beyond it. It was really, really, really brilliant. So let's see. Elaine says our perception is what makes up the world. That's the whole point of today's conversation. You nailed it, Elaine. So what I see in the world is coming from me, my judgments. For me, stop judging. As we stop judging, we have a better capacity to actually interact with what's there. As we don't judge, as we don't judge, our perception is opened up wide to see possibilities that we might not otherwise have seen. And Lisa says the answer is usually much easier than the question. Well, yeah. So when we ask the right questions, we get good answers, right? So the trick is to learn how to ask good questions. And oftentimes the the general conversation doesn't support the asking of good questions, because it means stepping outside the box. The prevailing conversation is the box. And what we get to do is to step outside that box to generate new questions and new perceptions and new reflections. So um, all these other organizations were reflecting each other, and this woman Helen stepped outside that box, was reflecting on the whole picture. So I believe it was Einstein who said a problem cannot be solved from the level at which it was conceived. So when the and I probably bastardized that quote, but the idea is that when we have an issue, we and it's unsolvable at this level, what we get to do is jump up to a higher level, a meta level, to be able to view that problem from a broader perspective where we can see more of the big picture. And that's what she was able to do, is to say, well, wait a second, this is the wrong question. Everybody told her she was nuts, but she through this different perspective found another way in, another way to solve this humongous problem. Elaine says it's a beautiful thing to be an active participant in the world, coming from love and honor, and serve where I'm guided to serve for the good of the whole. I'm sure that this is tremendously gratifying when you're present to it. And the thing is that we are all active participants in the world, that everything that we are reflecting is contributing to the world for good or for ill. So we get to be conscious and conscientious about the way that we interact with the world. And so, again, another amazing conversation, folks. I'm so grateful to you. This is really enlivening and enriching for me, and I hope it is for you. I so appreciate you and this opportunity to spend time with you. So I think that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And Maggie and I, who's off eating the plant again, go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. It is my privilege to be here with you. Please do something good for the earth today. Love the earth today and every day. And Elaine says, all is a beautiful symphony to me. There is no good or bad. It all serves you. Serves. You are right. I agree that it all serves. And we get to be conscious creators and conscious collaborators with this magnificent planet that is the source of our lives. So on that, enjoy Earth Day and love the earth.